All right. So everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you're listening to us for the first time, please subscribe and share this video. Again, please subscribe and share this video. We have a returning guest, Nita Wiggins, on, and she's always welcomed on this program. A lot to bring to the table, as she always does. We're going to be talking about the French elections that taking place. Also, about the Supreme Court justice that was just confirmed in the U.S. Senate. A huge win for progressives, I think, and for the country in general, and many other issues as we go into the interview. Nita, thanks so much for coming on. And we know you have a book out that you just kind of updated. So before you even get into those issues, just talk about the book quickly for people that are just hearing you for the first time.
Absolutely, Rob. Good to see you again. The book is called Civil Rights Baby, My Story of Race, Sports, and Breaking Barriers in American Journalism. And what's timely about the book in particular is that other barriers are being broken. You talked about the Supreme Court. But in my career of journalism, there were barriers to break because I started on US television in the 1980s. And I had a vision of myself as a sports journalist covering the high-profile Dallas Cowboys, but it was not something that women particularly were doing at that time. And so there was just the battle to get to what I wanted to do, to self-actualize, which is civil rights. And that's the book, and that's the reason that I have written a book, to be a guidebook for people who have their own pursuit, to show how, despite obstacles, a person can still get there. It's not an easy trip, but my experience shows that one can reach that summit by staying in the game.
What do you feel like happened in that confirmation? Why were people like Graham and other Republicans who voted for Miss Brown Jackson in the circuit court judgeship earlier on in 2021, why didn't they vote for her for the Supreme Court when they clearly thought she was qualified to vote for just a year earlier?
Rob, I listened to over 20 hours of these hearings because I had to get it into my mind what was going into the official record. And you know how I am. I don't want to read it. I want to see the words and the ideas coming. And so what I did notice is that my senator from Texas, Cornyn, and Kennedy, John Kennedy from Louisiana, they were focusing on the idea of once a justice is part of the Supreme Court, there is no more public control. The voters, they kept saying that a justice is unaccountable to the voters. And in our country, we have never had a Black woman at that level of power in the United States not being accountable to anyone, not accountable to the voters, not accountable to a president for a recall, nothing. And for me, from my observation and from distilling what I heard time and again, those senators from certain states, Florida and Texas and Tennessee, and North Carolina as well, Senator Tom Tillis, their words were telling me that they did not want to support endowing a Black woman in the United States in a position that no one could remove her from.
No, I hear you. And I think a lot of this is this identity politics game that we've been playing throughout the 2021, 2022 now cycle. And it's shameful because there's so many big issues to solve in this country and around the world. And, you know, my thing is we should be solving those instead of playing these, you know, color games, these don't say gay, all this nonsense. What about the economy? What about the people that are being paid poor wages? What about healthcare? What about this COVID crisis that's still going on? I mean, there's many, the climate change is a huge issue that just keeps getting worse and worse for Republicans and Democrats. As far as that
True.
goes, it's not a party thing where climate change strikes, unfortunately. But in general, it's just really sad that no one is looking at these big picture issues, instead worrying about these nonsensical splitting people, Democrat, Republican. It's like it's a football game or a basketball game. Honestly, who really gives a damn? It's total
Right.
nonsense. I'm
But
fed up
that,
with it.
but but I understand what those senators were saying, because when we look at our Supreme Court, we now have 4 women. Of course, we know this now, 4 of 9. We have 2 people who are Black. We have Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who comes from an Hispanic background. We have a minority of white men,
Mhm.
okay, for the first time. And so, in the minds of those senators, from the words I heard them say, in their minds, they were seeing that whatever decisions people from their background, people who look like they look, those people were not going to make the decisions. And so, what difference does it make? Uh, who's the demographic or the ethnic background of people? In my journalism class this past week, I had a student research what difference does it make when a justice is a woman or a man? And women justices and judges, according to the evidence of court cases, women make different decisions regarding discrimination cases and regarding child welfare cases and other issues like that. And so you talked about the big picture issues. These are issues.
Mhm.
And suddenly, with this vote, the people who come from a mindset that might have been more closely aligned with that of the Senate members, those people do no longer have a stranglehold on the outcome. And Senator Cornyn, and I guess it was Kennedy, they were saying that this is unrestrained power. And they even asked the question, what about making decisions from the bench? What about making policy from the bench? And they said, there is no backstop to what you do. There's no voter recall. So that is what the big issue is with the people who did not want to support this nominee. The power shift is right there in full color for us now.
What are you hearing from people on the ground that are living in France about this Russian-Ukraine conflict right now?
I had a conversation last week with a journalism student, and he said that he is so disappointed that he is not in Ukraine. And I said, is it your plan to take a weapon and fight? And he said, no, no. So this 25-year-old student said that other students of his generation, his friends who are either in journalism or a little ahead of him, that they went to report on the war. And so I just want to share the one real conversation I had with a person about Ukraine. And this young man's enthusiasm was to go and to show whatever is happening. He said he feels that as a future journalist, it's his responsibility to be part of the profession of the pool of journalists showing the world what happens. And he didn't make a judgment one way or the other, and neither did I. But I find it, I don't know if I find it inspiring or disturbing that covering a war is such an attraction for a young journalist. I would like for a young journalist to say, I hope that there's a time that no one has to report on a war.
Right.
And,
Well,
and so that's the one real conversation that I've had with people about Ukraine.
So obviously, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the voting started yesterday. With that, we spoke about this the last time we did speak on here. You said that there was a liberal candidate that may have a shot of making it into the second round. What is the chance of that now? Because it seems like it's back to, as it kind of was the last time, Le Pen and Macron again.
Yes. So I feel the French people, the French political apparatus, not the people, not the voters, the apparatus, failed the socialists, or the people with the socialist views, and the people with more of the left-leaning side of the political fence. And I go back to Christian Taubira, who was the Attorney General under the socialist president, Francois Hollande. And so remember, Nicolas Sarkozy was president. He was defeated by Hollande. Hollande did not run for re-election, and that left a gap, which Emmanuel Macron filled. So what happened with our voting on Sunday, the socialist candidate, the left-leaning and socialist candidates would not align. They would not form a coalition. And that is their great failure, because one of the political organizations said, let's do a voters poll, actual voters, and ask them to pick the candidate from the left that is the preferred. Well, Madame Taubira won the poll of the voters, not the poll of the poll or the poll of the pollsters, the voters. However, Anne Hidalgo, who is the outgoing mayor of Paris, and Mr. Jadot, who is the environmental candidate, and of course, Mélenchon, the most left candidate, they said, no way are we going to get in line behind Madame Taubira, who happens to be a Black woman, born in French Guiana. But she is the one who the voters picked. And the journalists somehow failed to interview Madame Taubira often enough. And even on the weekend after she declared her candidacy, one of the 24-hour channels had a wine producer, a monk who works at a monastery that produces wine. He was live on their set for hours on the weekend that Madame Taubira announced she was running for president. Why? Because the journalists were not interested in letting her speak. They did the Bernie Sanders on the candidate.
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. And so as a result, and I come to the end of all of that just to say, as a result, the socialist candidate, Anne Hidalgo, had 1.6% of the vote.
Wow.
And the Socialist Party had the presidency in 2012. And this is the disconnect, because the political apparatus decided the 4 different factions, including the communist candidate and another candidate. There were 6 candidates on the left. If the 6 had said, we will pick one, and then we will find cabinet positions for the others, we could have had a very different outcome instead of a repeat of Macron versus Le Pen.
So who do you?
Lot.
Yeah, no, it's very informative, because a lot of people don't know all the nits and crannies of what's going on in these elections. They just kind of hear what, these mainstream outlets tell us. So it's nice to see somebody that's in the thick of things that can really give us the straight information on that. So Nita, what do you think's going to happen with Le Pen and Macron, because we did have the yellow vest movement that got kicked up, obviously against Macron. It seems like the last time that Le Pen was up, she seemed like she gave him a pretty good run for his money. Could this be the time where she does win this race?
Well, this is the third time that she is running for president.
Right.
In 2012, she finished third with just 17% of the vote. And then in 2017, we know she was second, she was runner up. But she has doubled her support each time. And the door is left open for the yellow vest, the people, again, who could retire at age 60, because a lot of times the yellow vest workers are not people who have advanced degrees. So she has spoken to them with a very concrete policy. And in France, for the 12 years that I've been here, there has been a national debate about retirement age. And so candidate Le Pen has played the biggest, most powerful card with retirement age, which means retire earlier. And Mr. Macron is consistently called the candidate, the president of the rich. But he didn't give that impression when he first went out into the streets with the young people before the 2017 vote. Mr. Macron was not yet 40, and he was out there without a jacket. He had his work shirt and the sleeves rolled up, and he was out late at night with the college age protesters, because he said and presented himself as a change agent, yet his policy was to give tax breaks to the rich. And we see how well that works everywhere, right? You know, that's the formula for not reaching the public, starting with tax breaks for the rich.
So it seems like Le Pen's got a pretty good shot to win this time then.
I'm saying that she has proposed a policy that is popular. And then here's something else that she has done. We always talk about women candidates and how they have to make themselves over. Well, she physically hasn't changed her look, but she's wearing softer colors. And she has been posting videos of herself with her cat. So these are the things that voters want to see a woman do. And so I think this being her third presidential election, she has sharpened up in a way that connects with the people. There was a final thing that I'll offer is there was a survey that I did listen to, simply because it said that most of the people who responded to the questions said that candidate Le Pen seemed to hear the voices of the people. And something like 20% of the respondents said the current president seems to hear the concerns of the people. So that's how it's looking to me, not a prediction, simply that she's saying the things that people want to hear.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll make the prediction, I think that with the country and the environment that we're living in right now, US, Europe, even Africa, with all these supply chain issues, food prices are out of this world, I think you're going to see more of these candidates like Le Pen win. And it's not, might be about some policies, but it's going to be a lot about what the issues that we just spoke about, as far as, the inflation and these policies like retiring at 60 years old. People want to do that, and that's can help you win the election. So I believe that this is going to happen. It started in 2017 with well, 2016, I should say, with Brexit and Trump. And
Mm.
it's went into Poland and a lot of these other European countries where we've seen these people that are somewhat like President Trump was, excuse me, winning these elections. So I
Mhm.
think it's just
Yeah.
a matter of time where it keeps being that domino effect. So
And 26% of the eligible voters did not vote. And so that tells me that, well, so the numbers are Macron had 10 million voters, Le Pen 8 million,
wow.
Mélenchon had 7.7 million,
Mhm.
and Zemmour was fourth place with 2 million. But 26% stayed away. So everything that I just said really is skewed by the no votes. And they have something here called the blank ballot, which means with the final round, the second round in 2 weeks, a voter can put a blank sheet inside of the voting envelope.
Mhm.
And I went to with a friend to observe the voting on Sunday, and my friend was able to vote within 10 to 15 minutes
Wow.
because a voter at that particular station, he walked in, and in every voting station, there are stacks of cards with the name of the candidate. We
Mhm.
had 12 candidates, and so the voters walk in and they can take the cards from any stack that they want. They pick the 2 or 3. I think 3 is the limit, but they pick a number of cards from the stacks, and everybody watches. There's no not seeing that. And the person at the voting verification desk hands a blue envelope to the voter. The voter goes into the booth, puts one name in the envelope, and puts the other names in a garbage bin. And so this is paper voting. And then the ballot inside of the envelope is handed to someone else, and then the voter signs beside his or her name at the end of the process. And all of that is just to say that some people didn't even bother to go and put a blank ballot in for round 1. They stayed home. So second round, more people probably will go vote. The total number will be higher, but that just means that a person who still wants to abstain can put the blank card in the envelope.
Mhm.
And for 26% of the people to stay home in France, that's a high number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think people everywhere are fed up with the system in place, and hopefully, I don't have too much hope in our society in general, but hopefully we'll get some decent leaders. I have to say decent because it'd be kind of foolish to say good, but I'll say decent leaders that will actually get somewhat done. I don't have hopes too high, but maybe in Europe, but not over in this country, unfortunately, because it's all about money and greed, which is in a lot of places, but it seems like it's really taking place a lot here. So we will we will end on that bad news. But Nita, as we end, can you tell people where they can find out more about you, Get Civil Rights Baby, and anything else you'd like to say?
Yes, Rob, the website is nitawiggins.com.
Mhm.
And one can also search by typing civilrightsbaby.com into the URL window. And I love when people visit my LinkedIn page to see my essays, because a lot of the things that we talk about, you get me so engaged in the conversation that I think, hey, I really need to publish on this. So I
Right.
can be found on LinkedIn and nitawiggins.com. The book is available at Barnes and Noble, whether a person wants to walk into the store or to buy it online from Barnes and Noble.
All
So
right.
thanks for asking.
NitaWiggins.com. Definitely check it out, Nita. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and thanks so much for giving this great insight that you did today.
Thank you.